Good evening, everybody. I have two missions. I know the hour is late. It's terrible when you give a politician a microphone at a Jewish event. But don't get too comfortable. I am very excited to be here. I've got really two missions. First of all, I want to give my gratitude and respect to Rabbi Mangel, who scares me. Because you have to understand, Lubavitch is one of these organizations that once they have you, they never let you go. It's like one of those uncomfortable hugs from my grandmother when she squeezes and squeezes and squeezes and you're feeling the love, but at one point you're like, okay. Now, I met Lubavitch when I was 23 years old by a rabbi named Shmuley Boteach, who writes now books about sex. So he was the Rebbe's emissary to Oxford University, where I was a student. And I was asked on a date by a young lady, and she told me to meet her at the Oxford, and I couldn't pronounce the word. I thought the word was L'Chaim Society, but it was actually L'Chaim Society. And unbeknownst to me, I show up to the Oxford L'Chaim Society, the Chabad house, and I knock on the door, nobody answers, but I hear all of this noise and commotion. And I knock louder, nobody answers. So then I just swing the door open and walk in, and it looked like I walked back in time. All I could describe it as a guy who had never been introduced to Judaism in this way. It looked to me like a scene from a movie I loved called Yentl. And there were these guys with black hats, and there were strings hanging out from their pants. I thought maybe they didn't have a good tailor or something. I didn't understand what was going on, and everybody in the room froze and stopped and looked at me, and I said, okay, these people are probably wondering what this large black man is doing here. And I was wondering to myself, what is this large black man doing here? And this woman runs over to me and says, who happens to be the rabbi's wife, one of the most beautiful women whose insides glow, she says to me, are you Cory Booker? And I said, yes. And she said, well, the young lady you were supposed to meet couldn't make it tonight. And I'm like, oh, this is just like the United States of America. And so I turn around to leave, and she says, wait a minute, would you please join us? Now, the beautiful thing about Chabad I have found is that it is an organization that is steeped in values. It is about the truth of Judaism. That ultimately life is not necessarily about what you say and how you pray, what you have to sell and what you daily tell. It's about how you live and how you give every day that matters. Abraham was said to be one of God's chosen people because he was said to have kept his tent open on four sides so that anyone approaching would feel the hospitality. And here was my first moment with Chabad. And Debbie Boteach looks at me and says, would you please join us? And the only seat open around this crowded banquet table was right now next to the head rabbi, Rabbi Boteach. Now, Shmuley and I are different in almost every way imaginable. I'm 6'3", he's 5 foot and a smidgen. I'm black, he's white. I am very handsome, as you can see. But when I sat down next to the rabbi, my first connection to Chabad, I felt a word that as a goy from Jersey, I had no idea what the word was, but I felt this word welling up in my body as I looked at this man. The word was bashert. Bashert. And so, this is my Chabad story. It was Simchas Torah, the most joyous day in the Jewish calendar. By the end of the night, I had my first kippah on, I was dancing around with the Torah, and I realized that Chabad has a lot of rhythm. They're the lost tribe of African Americans, actually. And I left on a high, I came back, and the rabbi and I made a deal. We said that we had to love each other, and part of love is understanding. So he asked me, he goes, look, I will give you books about Judaism. You give me books from the African American tradition, and we started exchanging books. I give him books by Alex Haley, W.D. Du Bois. He gave me books about Hillel, about Maimonides, and my mind expanded. I felt my faith deepening as I was learning universal, penetrating truths. I ended up starting to study on Fridays with other rabbis. And by the end of my first year, I kept coming back for Shabbat dinners. I was bringing, actually, Jews who had never even lit a Shabbat candle. They're like, you're going to a Chabad house? I gotta see this. I brought black friends of mine, Christian friends of mine, Muslim friends of mine. The table became a testimony to the song that we sang during the high holidays. If you know the Hebrew, Ki beiti beit tefillah l'chochoni. May my house be a house of prayer. I know I'm really shaming a lot of Jews in here that they don't know the Hebrew. A whole room full of Jews just put their heads down. Who is this boy? Get him off the microphone. May my house be a house of prayer for many nations. This is Chabad. It was great Jewish philosophers that wanted Judaism, wanted the people of Israel to be a light unto nations, not to proselytize. Don't pray like me, don't look like me, but be good people. By the end of the first year, the rabbi asked me to be the president of the Oxford L'Chaim Society. I said, yo man, I know you are crazy, but now I see you are also Meshuggah. But we argued and we agreed that I would be the first black Christian head of a Chabad house in the history of humanity. But this is what I did not know, that Chabad would not let go of me. I moved to New Haven to go to law school, and Shmuley Boteach, the father of my Jewish experience, introduced me to Shmuley Hecht in Yale, the Chabad rabbi there. Now there's a Chinese blessing, may you live to know two Shmuleys. And now I connected with this guy, and we started the Yale Eliezer Society, 5 guys around a Shabbat table. Now we have hundreds and hundreds of members, and it became an incredible experience. Then I moved to Newark, and they won't let me go. Rabbi Hecht introduces me to Rabbi Block. Rabbi Block and I were together yesterday welcoming the head rabbi from Israel to Newark, New Jersey to announce the opening of the world headquarters of Manischewitz in Newark, New Jersey. It is a Lubavitch conspiracy. And so as I was eating, I'm not making this up, as I was eating the world's largest matzah, 25 feet that we created that day, I sat there surrounded by a review of righteous rabbis. And this guy felt at home. This is what Lubavitch is doing. It is connecting the world. It is preserving Judaism. Not for cultural reasons, not for food, not so we can get together, but so that people can stand up and tell the story their truth. Tell the world their truth. Lincoln said that everyone is born an original, but sadly most die copies. We are born for a reason. We're born to tell our truth unto the world. And in times of injustice, and we are in times of injustice, in times when wrongs must be righted, when God calls to humanity to answer, what makes me proud of Lubavitch is it doesn't shrink from its duties. It stands up like Abraham and says unto the Lord, Hineni me, behold, here I am. So I want to thank the rabbi for inviting me here to this great light of Chabad. And my second purpose is really very quick. Y'all need a Devar Torah today. I'm sorry. I expected someone else to do it. I saw 2-3 rabbis come up here. Nobody mentioned the Devar Torah. So allow this black guy from Newark to share with you Devar Torah, which is perfect because it is really about the two gentlemen we honor today, Lewis Cass, George Norcross. You all know this Devar Torah, this section of the Torah this week, is one of my favorite stories. Even when I was growing up in a small black church here in New Jersey, this story captivated me, and it still captures the imagination of people today. It is when Moses sent 12 people into the land of Israel to be spies, to check out what was going on, because this was the promised land. 12 people came back, and 10 of them were afraid. 10 of them were so scared that they made up lies about what they saw. You don't want to go there. And then even worse than that, they said, and if you read the Hebrew, they said that they see us as grasshoppers, but more importantly, we see ourselves as grasshoppers in their eyes. Now this was a tragic day. People say it was the first Tisha B'Av, the first of those terrible, terrible days that have been continually occurring throughout Jewish history. It's a day that the Second Temple fell, for example. Because God was so upset, Moses was so upset about this instance. But there were two men, like our honorees here tonight, Caleb and Joshua, who did not see fear, who did not let themselves be intimidated by what was, who did not let their fear grow larger than their faith, who had the audacity to see not problems but potential, not barriers but blessings, not obstacles but opportunity, not pitfalls but pools of potential. They were righteous men. Today we honor two individuals who are just like this. George and Lewis have never shrank from who God has called them to be. They are two men who have audacity, courage, chutzpah. They look at places, whether it be Camden and Newark, that other people disrespect and disregard and surrender to cynicism or negativity or believe that cannot reflect the glory of God, and they say, no, no, no. These are sacred places with sacred soil, and I will infuse these places with the light of the Lord, and we shall manifest His truth. These two men have dedicated their lives not to amassing fortunes. They both come from humble backgrounds. They both know that the definition of their very being is not what you get, but what you give. They have affected thousands and thousands of children. Their very essence is that of chesed, of tzedakah, of tikkun olam. These two men that we honor tonight fall perfectly in today's Devar Torah. And we need, in this time in our world's history, more men like this, more men of faith, more men of strength, more men of vision. It is righteous that tonight Chabad chooses to honor them. And to these two men who are my friends, to Chabad all over the globe doing the righteous work of the Lord, and to all of us today who are committed to these ideals and the values, I humbly say these two words, Yasher Koach.